What's happening, all future debt-free millionaires? Hey, this is Zach Edwards with another episode of the Debt-Free Millionaire podcast and personal finance course. This is great. This is the kind of thing that we really enjoy doing, is helping you to prepare for the future. Today, we're going to be talking about interviews. So yesterday, if you missed it, it was week 9, day 1 in our book. That was all about if you need another job. You might not need another job, but you might be dissatisfied or disengaged with the job that you have so far. If you do, a lot of it's up here. You have to find out what it is that's making you disengaged, because you might go to the next job and be just as disengaged in the next job, or you might even put up to the next position and find yourself still disengaged and dissatisfied with the next job. So we want you to be able to figure out here what is going on, so that wherever you go, or even if you stay in your old job, that you're happy with what you're doing. And there's a lot of different ways of doing it. Go back to yesterday, check it out. Check out our book. Again, that's week 9, day 1. This is day 2 of week 9. So let's go into it. Today we're going to be talking about if you found the perfect job and you ought to leave the job that you already had. This also could be used if you want to go to the next position, because sometimes you're going to have to go through an interview process like every other applicant. So when I was working for Pulte Homes, it wasn't Pulte Homes, it was Hamlet Homes over in Utah, we came to a point where the quality control VP actually was leaving the company. And he was so impressed by me that he wanted me to actually try out for the position. He didn't know how it would go. He actually didn't know me that well. But he was very happy with who I was and what I was doing, so much that he actually recommended me for the VP position. So again, I was only probably 30 years old at the time. So I would have been a very young exec. So I went in my interview, and it was a totally different thing, because I wasn't interviewing with my next manager up. I was actually interviewing with the owner of the company, which was a little bit different. And I might not have been the most relaxed as I should have been. And of course, at the end, I didn't get the job. I didn't think I would, because I didn't have the experience in quality control and being in that department for that long. Actually, I had a friend that was perfect for that position. And so he went in and he actually got the job, which I'm so happy that he did. I like being a superintendent. I actually did not want to do quality control. But that being said, you could actually be interviewing in a position in your own company, or this could be used for a company that you're not working for currently. So let's go through some of these things that will help you in the future when it comes to taking interviews. So let's start off with some things first. So what is an interview? It is basically where you actually meet with someone, a representative of the company, and try to impress them enough that they're going to hire you for that position. Now, we've already gone over resumes. They're going to interview you based on your resume and any other questionnaires that they gave you. So if they found that your resume was a good resume, they're going to find you as a perfect fit, and you're going to be able to go in for that position. Now, here's the thing. When you go into this position, there's some things you need to know beforehand. And we're going to go through all these different things of what to do preparing for it. But we also want to make sure that you are ready for this when we come into it. And even though it might seem intimidating, you're going to go be interviewing for a job that hopefully you really, really want to have. But here's the thing. You might actually not be put in the same situation as, say, you see in this image right here, where it's one person and you. There's other interviews you might be put into, including, click on that, there we go, including a panel interview, where it's not just one person and one person. Most of the time, the first interview is usually just one-on-one. It allows them to get to know you, and if they like you, then they put you in front of a panel. A lot of times, it will be one-on-one, no matter what. Sometimes it will be one-on-one and the panel. Sometimes there will be a different type, and there's all different types of panels. But this right here is one that's getting very, very big very quickly. And this is the group interview. This is where one person, probably this guy, at the same time, as you can see with an interview, you want to be dressed to match the atmosphere that you're going to be put into. So if it's a professional, you want to look very professional. If it's a semi-professional, you still want to look very professional. They want to know how high you can become. Now, if you're wearing jeans and a t-shirt, they're going to think you as very low when it comes to your preparedness for not just the interview, but being part of their company. So you want to be able to give them every chance to understand you and understand how much you really want this job. If you go in a t-shirt and jeans, it really means you don't want this job. It's the truth. So prepare to impress. Prepare to get the job. Prepare to mimic the environment that you're going into, or make it even better in your appearance than the environment that you're going into. Let's go back to this group interview. Okay, so the group interview is very essential. Most of these companies these days do not have the time to interview each person individually. So they will bring in all the applicants into one sit down and meet with you all at once. And the reason why they do this is because they want you to stand out. They do not want you to be just there, another person as part of the cog. They want you to stand out, because if you stand out in the interview, you're most likely going to stand out with your performance in the job itself. So yes, it can be intimidating. Don't let it be intimidating. You want it to be a place where you can actually shine. So don't go after groupthink. If somebody else says something and you actually agree with it, great, you can agree with it, but add to it. Bring yourself out from just being in the crowd. I actually did a group interview with probably 30 people. Yes, that's a lot of people, and it's really hard to stand out. But there was like 3 people that actually stood up and stood out in the interview. And this was a video interview, so it's even harder. Some of the people just stayed in the background, didn't say a word during the interview. That's not an interview. That is you watching a podcast or watching a video on YouTube, and you will not be hired because you're not standing out. So you want to be the leader in this. Or if you're not a leader, you want to be a supportive person in this, supporting not just what the company says, but also what others might say. Because if you're going to ever be in management, you're going to have times where you are not supposed to shine. You're supposed to make your people shine, because the better your people are, the better it shows at you. The better you are over your people, the worse you are at managing those people. You're like, wait a second, what? Think of it this way. If I go in and I have a group of people, I chose all these people. I chose these people, and I'm trying to promote these people. But yet every time I talk to the upper ups, such as my boss or his boss or even the owner, and he hears just what I do, he's like, well, then why don't you do all the work and throw out all your employees, all your underlings? If you go in there and actually promote how well your underlings are doing, they're going to say, well, that's a great manager. That's a great manager because of the things that they're doing to help those people grow, and you look better for it. So let's go back to this circumstance. If you're in a group interview, you don't just want to shine by yourself. You want to be able to talk about other people. So if somebody else has an idea, great, here's a great idea. Accept that great idea. Say you really support that idea, and then add on to it. Grow that idea. Another way of thinking about this is if you become a group thinker and you just echo what everyone else is saying, you're just an echo. There's nothing new coming out of your mouth, coming out of your brain, and that will be seen by the employer. Okay, so what are some of the things that will help you to stand out? Let's just start out with an individual interview. Okay, so these are a lot easier. So there's also different sizes of group interviews. There's larger. As I said, I had a 30-person interview, and that was me managing it. You had a smaller one that you just saw with this little group, big group. And then you have a small group where it might be 4 leading candidates, and they're going to bring you in, and they actually might choose 2 of you if you both shine. They might use 1 of you. They might use all of you. You don't know, because you don't know how many positions are actually open. So there's always different ways of doing this and ways of shining in these circumstances. But let's go into the interview itself. The first thing before you go into the interview, and I said this in the last episode, Research the company. You want to know ins and outs of the company. This does not mean just going online and reading what you can read about it online. It definitely does not mean go to ChatGPT and ask them what they think. It means going out and talking to the actual employees. You're talking to the employees. You're talking about the people that you're going to be taking, not their job, but you're going to be taking a job much similar to theirs. Or maybe you're going to be a management over those people. That's great. Or you're going to be the underling of a boss, of a manager, and you want to ask them about the environment, about what they do, what their position is, what that position means, all these different things. You want to do research on the company because you want to know how, one, if you really want to be there. You might not want to be there after interviewing the employees or even the customers. You might want to be there even more, and you'll actually have something to take to the interview by giving research first. The next thing is practice. Practice, practice, practice. The best way to get to Carnegie Hall, which is like the pristine performance location, is actually to practice, practice, practice. This includes finding the common questions. Now, if you go to the back of the comment section, actually the description that we created, there'll actually be a few links. And one of those will be the normal questions that people ask. These are the questions that they really want to ask you. How about this? Rereading the job description before you go in. That's great because you might actually have something in your head that says it's actually supposed to be for one thing when actually it's for another kind of job. So just because you assume something does not mean it's right. Double check, triple check, even quadruple check if you need to. Now, find people to role play. This is all about practice. You're going to practice some of the common questions that they're going to ask you, and maybe some curveballs that they may be throwing you. You want to know whatever they're going to be able to give you, that you're going to have an answer for it. The only way of doing that is practicing with someone else. You might practice it in your head, but there's no saying that that's going to come out. When your brain hears you actually saying the answer and hearing the question, one, it will calm you down, but also it'll give you more responses. It will give you a more solidified response so that you're not just, yeah. If you're bantering or if you're ranting, don't rant. If you're doing those things, the employer will see it and that will be negative to you. So another thing to do is prepare with your list of references. They might ask you in the interview. If they're going for an interview, it means they really like you, which means you want to have your references, especially if you put on your resume that all you need to do is ask. So interview questions upon request. If you said that, you better have it upon request, which means you might want to have it there in the interview with you. But also with that, you also want to have your portfolio if you have one. Now, here's a great thing. I was a home builder I have been a home builder for about 20 years. When I was first off, it would have been great if I actually took a picture of every single house I did, the amount of money it came in, how much it was budgeted for, and the amount of time it took. And I did that for every house that I actually built. If I had done that, come into an interview and said, this is my portfolio of all the houses I built, any boss would have hired me on the spot. You know why? Because I was prepared, but I was over prepared. I wasn't over prepared. I was thinking about it way in advance. So no one ever thinks of creating a portfolio outside of being artwork or even journalism of things that they've done. Create a portfolio starting from day one. These are the projects that I've done. Even if you're in college, you can do a portfolio of things that you've done in school. Keep those in your portfolio and add to it. As your portfolio gets bigger, you can take out the older ones and just stay with the most prestigious ones. If you're doing houses like me, I built over 100 houses, somewhere well over 100 houses, because I was usually doing about 12 houses at a time. I even went up to 23 houses at one point, and I've gone down to at least 3 houses, which was my last job, and that was right before a recession. So if I had actually kept a portfolio of all these different things, I could actually show my boss, and I could show them the amount of time it took, and even put an explanation of why it took. Like if I went over, this is the amount of time it took because of X, Y, and Z. Don't blame people, because in an interview, you do not want to blame people. which is what I'll go over in just a minute. But just be prepared with a portfolio. Another thing that you can bring in there is also a pile of your resumes, because there might be a panel and you might just have one resume, or you sent in a resume and you just expect them to have a resume. Also, what's great to have is enough for everyone and yourself, because they might ask you things on your resume and you're like, oh, did I actually put that there? Oh yeah, there it is. And you can actually repeat it from what it was on the resume. So you don't try to, oh yeah, wait a second, let me think about that, and get some of your facts wrong. You want to make sure that you have it on the resume so you can look at it, so you can basically tell everyone exactly what it says on the resume and add to it. So there are also things to be worried about. You're going to go into an interview. Again, I already mentioned this before, but you want to mimic the environment that you're going into. If it's a very professional, you want to be very professionally dressed. If it's semi-professional, you want to be very professionally dressed. I went in for a job interview as a superintendent, but I came in with a button-down shirt, tie, collar, nice slacks on. I knew they were not going to be dressed like that. They were construction managers. That's not what they do. But I knew that I needed to look professional, so I prepared beforehand with the best attire I could have. So I was ready for that interview because I wanted that job. And that's any job I went into. I never went into a job I didn't want, because I wasn't going to settle for any job just because I needed a job. You might actually have to settle for it. Actually, no, that's not true. That's not true. When I went up to Alaska, I went with 3 bags of luggage and my family. I had 2 kids, 1 on the way, and my wife at the time. And so we get up there, we have 3 bags of luggage. We were staying at my sister's house, and I could not, in my mind and my heart, I could not let her just supply for us all our needs. So I took the menial job. I actually went to go work at a boat shop, and I was selling parts. I was doing inventory. I was cleaning up. That was my job. Those were the 3 things that I did for this boat company. And it was able to pay the bills and pay my sister for renting her one, it was a 1 bedroom inside of a 1,100 square foot house, or maybe even 1,200 square foot house. And there's 2 families. There were 4 kids already born, 1 baby that was on the way. It's a lot of kids. And so I think my sister was pregnant as well with their second child. I don't know. But anyways, I went and worked for that boat shop, and then I found that a job with the Department of Transportation came open, and that was I can't think of the name, but I basically bought things for the ferry system. So any of the Alaska Marine Highway System ferries that go up and down the coast of Alaska, I bought parts for them. And these were huge engines or small maintenance and janitorial things. I bought everything for them. And then finally, the job that I had sent in my resume a long time ago, it was probably like 4 or 5 months, and I was waiting for and hoping for, and I was still interviewing with other companies and other departments in the Alaska state government. But it was that point that I finally found the best job, and I went into an interview very professionally dressed. And because I had moved up there beforehand, that's actually the reason why I got that job. Everyone was equal. In my boss's mind, this is what he told me. Everyone was equal, but I was the only one that was interviewing for it that was already there, who took the initiative to come up to Alaska, not even having a job, knowing that I would get a job and being that determined. So those are some things. But again, the last thing to do when you're preparing for an interview, well, 2 things. 1, practice, which makes it so that you will be calm when you need to be in the interview, talking with somebody. Okay, so what can you do inside an interview? Whether it's a panel, whether it's a group, or whether it's one-on-one. So let's go over a few things. Now, the first thing you want to do when you get to your interview, or when you're thinking to prepare for your interview, you want to get there 10 to 15 minutes early. You want to show them that you will be early or on time when the job starts. You also want to show that you have the initiative, because you're going to go in there, ask questions, talk to people, those type of things. You want to know as much as possible before you go into the interview, so that when the time comes that they ask you questions, you know everything about the company, you know everything about yourself, and you know what it will take to get this job. because that will also create the third part is showing confidence in your appearance, showing confidence not just in how you're dressed, but also with a smile, with your body language. You want to sit up, you want to be prepared, be confident again. Okay, but you want to not just treat yourself with respect, not just come in and show this body language. They want to see how you're going to react in the environment that you're given. So you want to also show respect to the people around you as well. When you come in the door, you want to show everyone respect. You are not the high and mighty here. You are the lowest worm on the totem pole. And the reason is that for that is because you are not part of the company yet. The janitor has more tout inside the company than you do. Even if you're interviewing for the CEO, if you do not treat the janitor with respect or the receptionist with respect, they know that you won't show anyone else in the company with respect. So respect those you come to. Show confidence, show respect, show that you're ready for this job. Okay, so what is going to win you your job inside the interview? One is confidence, but also your authenticity, which also goes back to how you treat people, and also being positive. If you're a negative, what do they say? I don't know what the term is. Loosey-goosey. So, oh yeah, everything's great. Things are good. That's not positive, and that's not negative, but that's not forward thinking. If you are, it's everyone else's fault. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Being negative on anything. My job was horrible. That's why I had to get out of there. You're going to be thinking the same way when you're working there, because you're always going to have bad days. Everyone has bad days, and they do not want you to be negative in the interview. Positive, authentic, confident. Those are the three things you need to show in who you are. Now, here is the number one question that will be asked when you first get in the door. This is almost what everyone asks you. And it might not be the first one. It might be the second one. It might even be the third one. Almost every time somebody, whether it's in the panel or the individual, they're going to ask you to tell me about yourself. This is how I actually start off every interview that I start at. Now, mine's actually on purpose. When I say, tell me about yourself, I want to know where they're going to go. This is such an open-ended question, but that it allows me to understand a little bit more about them, and also lets them to give me basically whatever they want to say. It gives them free and open access to whatever they want to say. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want them to feel free. I want them to feel that this is an interview that will actually be open to them. And so they can tell me whatever they want. If it's negative, it probably look negative in the interview. If it's loosey-goosey, going with the flow, dude, then you're going to be flowing out the door. So what are some other things? When you're asked a question, there are some things to think about. We call it the STAR method. The STAR method is situation, S, T is for task, A is for action, and R is for results. Okay, so when you're asked a question, and this does not apply to all questions, but to some questions it does. When they ask you something that you've experienced or something that you've done or something that you managed, tell them the situation. You want to tell the whole situation, don't make it long. Do not rant. Tell them the full situation. Tell them what your task was, what your position was, what you were supposed to be doing, the action that you actually took, and then give them the results. Make sure that those are positive results. If you are about to give them a situation that did not end with positive results or a good action or something where someone else had to take over, disregard that as an event, as part of an experience, and skip to the next experience. Find an experience that you're positive, confident, and authentic. Also, showing respect to others. Because if you take responsibility for something else that someone else did, that does not look good in an interview. With that, don't blame others. You can say your boss was horrible. Your boss was okay. You know what? You're blaming it on your boss, and that will be shown as a negative. Now, if your company was having issues, you can actually mention your company and the things that it was going through. Do not blame your company. Give examples, give details as much as you can of what was going on and why it was right for you to exit or why you were laid off. If you give the right results, a positive spin on it, which is the next one. With whatever you answer, make sure you can find a positive spin on it. An answer, the results. This is one of the big questions is, what is your biggest weakness? Yeah, this is a great question. This is a question where you can rock it because of two things. One, you give a prime example of where normal people, will have weakness. If you have the same weakness as a lot of people, no one's going to bat their eyes at this. If you do one other thing, you show how you overcame that. So you can show negatives. Like if it says your weakness, you have to give a negative. If someone says, what's your weakness? Oh, I don't have any. That's a negative. Because you're not smart enough to think of what your negative is. Prepare that question. That's an important question to have because they're going to ask you that. Most likely, they're going to ask you, what is your weakness? And you're saying, well, this has been my weakness in the past, and this is how I overcame it. Boom. That's gold for any interviewer. They want to see how you overcame that issue. If you just blame others, this is my weakness, and this is why I have it. This person was horrible. Boom. Negative. Nobody wants to hear it. Okay. So some few other things. I don't want to go too far into this because, again, as you know, and I wouldn't do this in an interview, but I don't want to rant, and I usually do when it comes to this podcast. But when you're in an interview, do not rant. Get straight to the point. Give them as much detail as possible to keep it short, concise, and to the point, and then be done and let them ask more questions. You keep going on and on, they're going to forget their next question. They're going to get bored. Don't let them get bored. But also don't fabricate things. Don't make things up. Because most likely you're going to go into the second interview and you're going to have to repeat that lie. If you told a lie in your first interview, you're going to have to tell in the next one, and then ongoing. If you lie in your job, even if you get the job, they have grounds to fire you because you lied about it. If you lied in your resume, they have grounds to fire you as well. Okay, let's go to after the interview. So you just had the interview. Now, what can you do? Okay, so the interview is about to end. We're still in the interview, but it's about to end. And you say, okay, I do have a question for you. Or if they allow you to ask questions, you want to ask this question. What is the next step? You want them to show that you are confident that you're going to move to the next step. And you want to ask what that next step is. This also allows you to say, okay, what's my next step? And they say, well, tomorrow or the next day, we're going to interview all people that we've chosen. Great. If you're not called back in the next 3 days, you might want to look for another job. It means we're not on the top tier and they're looking at you after everyone else. So it's not a negative per se, but you might just not be the right fit for it. But you do want to ask them, what's the next step? You want to know where you're going, how to get there. You could also ask them, what are some of the things that you're looking for? They're looking for someone with education in this, education in this, education in this. It's like, well, I don't have education in this. I don't have experience in this, but this is what I'm doing to combat that. Again, with every negative, with every weakness, I return it with a positive. Okay, next one. After the interview, completely after the interview, you've left, you send a personal letter. Thank you for this interview. Tell them something that you remember from the interview that you really appreciate, especially if they gave you feedback. You want to say, thank you for the feedback. This is what I'm doing to fix that thing or to grow on that, whatever the feedback was. The next one is you are allowed to follow up. If you really want the job, then within 1 week, so say you interviewed on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, you have every right to call back Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday the next week. I would say wait on Monday, call on Tuesday. The reason why you don't want to do it Monday is catch up. You are going to be like thrown to the side just saying, well, we'll get to you when we get to you. Tuesday is when they usually are caught up and they're doing new things, which means they have time to look at interviews, and they're also probably looking at other people during this for this interview. They're going to go back to that time and say, okay, these are the people that we're looking at. They might start talking about it, and you want to remind them that, hey, I'm here. I'm interested in this company. This is what I bring to it. But again, don't be burdensome, and be straight to the point. Just checking on this. I wanted to see how you're doing. If you can talk to the boss, great. If you're going to talk to a receptionist, it's not as available for you. Ask them to leave a message and then send up an email afterwards. So this is the big thing though. As I told you, one of the jobs that it was my number one job that I wanted, it was to become the construction manager and basically director of all construction in the state of Alaska for Fish and Game. This meant I get to travel all across the state doing all different types of work, everything from fish weirs to our offices to cabins. I had construction, I had hands in everything. Hatcheries. My last project was a hatchery that burned down and we were replacing it. So I was doing all the contracts and everything like that. I moved down to Missouri as I was still doing that contract. So I was not able to travel, but I was still able to work on that. And so with that, I would not have gotten that job if I had given up and just stuck with my Department of Transportation job. Or if I blew off that interview because it took my boss 4 months. That boss, it always took him 4 months to go into interviews. 4 months. So I don't know why it took him that long, but he always had things to do that he didn't have time for that interview. So it always took him a long time to do it. So, okay, hopefully you got a lot from that. Hopefully you do well on the interview that you come to. There are a few more pictures that are not in the book because these have just become very popular. Video interviews. As you can see from this picture, the resume is here. Her face is here. She looks very professional. She does not have anything that's distracting the interviewer behind her, and he's able to talk to her while being over the screen. So this is great. This is a great atmosphere because you are in your own environment. You feel very confident. You feel very safe, and they didn't see anything that would be questionable outside of that. After this interview is probably when they're going to have you come in to the office and answer questions. Besides this, that's basically it. Interviews are actually quite simple and easy to do. They might cause stress. They might cause a little bit of anxiety at first. But the more you do, the better you'll get. The better you get, the more confidence you'll show in the interviews. And you might not be confident the first time. You might lose that position. But that's fine. These are all learning experiences. You are trying to learn these things. You're not trying to rule the world all in one foul swoop. You are trying to learn everything you can to make your next interview great. And in the company, you're going to be showing the same thing. You're going to be working and learning about their next position because you really want to have that position. And you have the drive to get you there. You're going to have the drive to find out more information in order to get there. So all these things will help you in getting that job. Maybe not the first one, maybe not the second one. Maybe it'll be the 10th one after the 10th interview. But this will get you the confidence that you need in order to get the job that you so want. And because you put in time and effort, you deserve it. Yes, I can actually say you would deserve a position. No, I'm not going to say what position, but I'll say you deserve a position because you did all this research into this company that you really want to work for. And at some point, you keep interviewing. Don't give up. You're going to get that job. Again, even if you have to take a job until that point. So that is what an interview is. These are just some tips and tricks to get your interview. Thank you so much for being with us on this great Debt-Free Millionaire podcast day, and we will catch you next time. Take care. Bye.